Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson. We are here tonight with another fantastic show. We have all ladies in the house tonight. Yay! If this is your first time with Books and Bottles, welcome. This is the show where we pair your favorite author with your favorite wine. If you've been back, we appreciate you. Either way, we want you to share. We want to grow this audience, and we want these authors and winemakers to get all of the love and all of the exposure that they deserve. I'm sorry, I can't even talk today. So I'm so excited to be here. So tonight we have a person that I met probably on Facebook. Y'all know how I do. We have Miss Nicole Beverly, and we're going to talk about her book, Finding Nicole. Nicole Beverly, where are you, lady?
Hello.
Hey there. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your book is called Finding Nicole. So we're so excited to delve in. So one thing about this show, we don't tell everything about the book because we want folks to read the book. So we want to learn about you, and we just want to know a little bit about the book. So again, I say welcome.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here and share more about the book and learn more about wine.
Perfect. So let's kind of talk a little bit. So tell us a little bit about you and what made you decide that you want to become an author.
Sure. So by profession, I am a clinical social worker, and I became involved in an abusive relationship in college. I did not know the red flags of abuse. So I took, all of the signs that now in hindsight, I can really go back and see. So the sign of jealousy, I just thought, oh, he loved me so much. The sign of control, he just wanted to make sure I was safe. And unfortunately, because I didn't know those red flags, I became involved with an individual who ended up being very abusive. I married him. I had 2 children with him. And I didn't leave that relationship until I realized if I didn't leave, one of us would be killed. And I would either kill him in self-defense or he was going to kill me.
Yep. I know that story, and a lot of our viewers know that story. We've had authors on here who know that story. So I'm happy that you are here because you did survive. I just want to go back a little bit about the red flags, because oftentimes we see red flags, and as women, we feel like we can change people. Did you feel like, if you loved him more, you put more into it, you could make a change? You could help him change.
Absolutely. I was young and naive, and I really did think, the harder you love somebody, the more you're there for them, that you can help them change. Now I know there's nothing further from the truth.
Sure.
But absolutely, when I was younger, I believed that. And even after I left him in the marriage, he stalked me for 2.5 years before he was finally held accountable. And once he was held accountable, he tried to hire multiple people to kill me from prison. So that's why
you married him. So he became your husband.
Yeah, he did.
So so before you married him, you already had experienced some of the things that today you would say, okay, this is no good. So once you married, did it get worse?
It did. So, in the beginning of the relationship, it was the emotional and verbal abuse, which is horrible. But in the beginning, it was here and there, followed with apologies, promises to change. I'm going to get help. And I believed it. And then as the relationship progressed, the emotional and verbal abuse got worse. As we had children, the physical abuse began. And then at the end of the relationship, before I finally left, all of it was at an extreme level where I was literally living in a war zone.
So I appreciate you just for being brave enough, to tell your story, because sometimes when people go through this, it's like you go through a process and you just don't want to talk about it. But sometimes putting it out there does help other people, other women or other men who may be going through something similar. So, how did you start your process to finding Nicole?
After, it took a long time for my abuser to be finally held accountable and spend some time behind bars where I could feel safe enough to really start to explore myself. And I remember people would ask me, Benita, they'd be like, so what do you like to do for fun? What kind of music do you like? And I would have no idea. Like, I wouldn't even know how to answer because I was so far removed from who I was.
Okay.
So what I started to do was just explore things and go out and have fun and do things, with friends, try new things. And at the same time, working on positive coping strategies and
Hmm.
strategies to build resilience so that I could ensure that I never ended up in that type of relationship again.
So when you didn't know those answers about yourself, was it because as a part of trying to calm the storm that you were living, you were kind of adopting, you liked the things that he liked? Did you find yourself kind of falling into um, just kind of be a shadow of who this person was just for peace?
Absolutely. And it was, I did as I was told, because if I didn't do as I was told, I knew there would be hell to pay. So I lost myself through verbal abuse. When someone repeats the same things to you and breaks you down over and over and over again, you truly start to believe those things about yourself. And that's where I was. I had stopped making eye contact with people. I had stopped speaking up at work, and as you might tell, I'm a very verbal person who doesn't have a problem, sharing my opinions. But I had
Sure.
stopped doing all of that, and I had truly lost myself completely.
So when did you, Nicole, stop feeling sorry for him?
Um, Probably, gosh, I would say like the last 5 years of the marriage, I really had stopped feeling sorry for him and feeling like I could fix it, but I still wanted him to step up and try to fix it. The last year of the marriage, it was at that point where I was done, but I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I felt terrified because he would tell me, if you leave me, I'm going to hunt you down. If you leave me, I'm going to kill you in every way he could, imaginable. And so I was almost frozen and paralyzed in this situation where I felt
Mhm.
I couldn't get out.
So when he said those things to you, you believed him?
100%. And I
Okay.
still, based on him still trying to hire people to kill me from prison, believe even now, after him serving time, he still feels that way. And he can't take responsibility for his actions and, losing power and control over me after many years. I mean, we met in college, and he had it for so long. I think he just couldn't believe that he had finally lost that power and control.
Mhm. Mhm. How did he get it? How did you give him that power?
So abusive individuals are very manipulative and very tricky in the way they break people down. So like now that I've studied this and do this work, I can see how he did it, right? So in the beginning, you're up on a pedestal. They present as this perfect person, they earn your trust, they buy you things, they want to know everything about you so that they can pretend to be interested in all things about you. Then slowly they start to nitpick, put you down, but then there's an apology. It might be in a joking way, but that still stings and it sticks
Sure.
with you. And
Yeah.
then it persists, and then they continue to break you down psychologically a little bit at a time. And then after a while, the apology piece stops playing in. There's gaslighting, which is where they do or say something. And then when you try to talk or ask a question or say something back, it's like, oh, that never happened. And you really begin to question yourself like, did that really happen? Or am I really this crazy person making these things
Mhm.
up when you're in the midst? There's like so many types of psychological manipulation that abusers use to gain
Yeah.
control of a victim. And until people understand it, they blame themselves. And for a long time, I blamed myself until I really learned, like, this is how this happens. And it's
So
okay.
basically, through the gaslighting, you were kind of saying, really, was it like that? You were questioning yourself.
Absolutely. Like, you question your memories. If were
Yeah.
they real? Was it true? Did it really happen? Because they're so convincing. And my ex was in medical sales, so he was like a true salesperson, even
Sure.
in through for the whole, like, to the outside world. Our house, everything was perfect. No one had a clue what was happening behind closed doors.
Wow, that's amazing. And again, I understand how hard it is to get yourself out of that and to get to the point where when you're being gaslit, that you like, nah, this really happened,
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, I know what I experienced. So now you're a social worker.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so who do you work with? You work with women like, who've been in these types of situations?
So my day job is, I'm a behavioral consultant for an ISD, and I work with students who have extreme behavior issues. Typically, it's students with a lot of physical aggression. And then my rest of my life job is I run a nonprofit organization called the Enough Initiative that does work with victims and survivors of domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault. And we hold retreats and workshops to help build resilience and teach people the skills to not end up in another abusive relationship and not return to their previous abusive relationship. So I think because I did make it out alive, and I know of so many victims who don't, I almost feel like I have to pay it forward and help as many victims as I can. I felt that way since I made it out, and even more so once my abuser was finally held accountable. And my book will take people there, all the fighting I had to do with the legal system and law enforcement, and really just the whole, like, society in general, to get the help I needed because people were not stepping up and helping myself and my children.
Do you have any ideas or insight? Like, how do we teach young people to recognize the red flags? I am a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my daughter's a little bit older now, but I don't know. You have kids, and so we know as parents, sometimes like we tell them things, and I'm like, that don't happen to me. They know everything, right? So
Absolutely.
how do we teach young people to see the red flags and at the same time act on the red flags that they see?
So, and that is another piece of the work that we do is we go into high schools and do presentations. But on our website, there is, if you go to our menu, there is a section about talking to your teenager about domestic or dating violence. And the facts that we know right now is 1 in 3 high school students has already experienced dating violence. And ages 16 to 24 is when you're most likely to enter your first abusive relationship. So the statistics are not pretty, and they are not reducing. And most high schools are not doing prevention work in this area. Like, we talk about sexual assault, we talk about consent, but no one is doing this educational piece of
Yeah.
talking about what an abuser looks like and what to do when you see the red flags. And Benina, I'll tell you, almost every time we're done with a presentation, I have a line of kids waiting to speak to me saying,
I believe that.
I had no idea. Like, everything you talked about is my relationship.
Yeah,
Boys,
because we don't know them as red flags. As you said, we see it as they're jealous, and we kind of somehow embrace jealousy, or we confuse it with love. um it's just very toxic, and so unfortunately a lot of us have become comfortable with toxicity.
yes. And I'll tell you what, it's with social media, it for these kids now, this generation, stalking is so much easier. The controlling behavior, knowing where people are at all times by following their location. Like, technology has made like the Apple AirTags. It's I feel it's even easier for them to be put in these controlling and abusive situations with technology where it's at these days compared to many moons ago when I
Yeah.
was in high school.
And we didn't have that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, thank you for your story. So we're going to take a quick break from your book, Nicole.
Okay.
And we're going to introduce our wine guest for the day, Miss Rada Griffin of Anissa Wakefield Wine. Hello, Rada.
Hi, how are you?
We're great. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us about Anissa Wakefield Wines.
So, I make wine. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, Anissa Wakefield Wines is my wine brand. I started my wine brand back in 2017. I had been studying wines for a long time, since around about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of my other passion projects is that I'm a private chef. And so in 2017, when I thought about rebranding my private chef company, I was like, well, what can I do to make this, stand out and be more unique when I reintroduce it to the public? And so I was like, well, you've been studying wine for forever, start a wine label. And that's kind of how it started. And so I produced my first wine in 2018. And then I was slated to start my next wine in 2019 at the end of that year, but there were some wildfires in California because I make my wine out in Napa.
Okay.
And so with the wildfires, that put production back because like lots of the vineyards and the wine and the grapes and things were ruined and couldn't be used. So I took that time between 2019 and 2021 and went and got my certifications in wine. Because in 2020 the pandemic hit and everybody was quarantined, so that was some time
That was
to
tough
do some
if you were a
things.
maker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I took that time to get those certifications and then came back full force in 2021 with my next vintage. And I just got back from Napa last month working on my next two wines that will be bottled in March of this year. So just been making strides, but
very nice. So what's your role in the wine making process?
So I am the creator. I sourced vineyards to determine what types of varietals I want in my wine, what I want, because it's all about what I want the wine to be at the end. So I kind of think about the end at the beginning, and that kind of helps me determine what I'm going for and what I need to look for when I go out to source vineyards. So my first three wines have been white blends. And so, and I use 6 varietals for those blends. So my wines are very complex, but very familiar. But that was the goal. I want you to know that you're drinking wine, but I don't want you to know exactly what you're drinking, what the varietals are.
Oh, so you don't tell us, huh?
I don't tell you, yes. So I like, because it's a good conversation piece. It's a good, when people try to figure out what the varietal is, and that brings up a lot of interesting conversation when people try to guess. And so it's very fun. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I do when it comes
what are we drinking today?
So today we're drinking Cuvée number 1.
Let us see the label. Okay.
See that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So this was from 2021. And this is a varietal, it's a white blend with 6 varietals that I don't list. And so I'm super proud of this wine because it seems like when you're really trying to go for something, like everything that can possibly happen, like comes up. And so I've never had children, but in my mind, I feel like, it's almost similar to like birthing a baby. Like it was just so like dramatic. But, at the end of it all came together. And so, and and people have been very, very receptive of it. Even people that aren't, white wine drinkers have really um, been accepting of the wine and have great feedback about it. And so
Uh-huh.
I'm proud of my baby. So
That's how
yeah.
we are. We're proud of our
Yes.
babies. So I do have to just give our viewers some clarity because
Okay.
when we say source and vineyards, like a lot of
Yes.
folks don't understand there's a whole lot of ways to get into the wine industry.
Yes.
A lot of jobs in the wine industry. There are
Right.
folks who are growing those grapes, and I have a wine too, so you and I aren't growing grapes, right?
No, 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 no. I don't grow the grapes.
Right.
Um, Eventually I want to do that. I want a vineyard, but the time it takes to, plant the vines and for them to grow and
Yeah.
start producing fruit is between 2 and 5 years,
It's a
depending
long
on what you want to grow. It's a long time.
Right. And that's why
And
I wanted to
so
make that distinction, just so folks don't think, okay, you can decide in 17 that you want to make a wine,
no,
and 18 you have one if you intend to, start from the grassroots and grow some grapes. So there are a lot
right.
of ways to get into the industry. Um, and you don't have to be a grape grower, honestly.
You don't. And there are lots of great growers out there, for those who aren't or can't be grape growers or don't have the time to wait. And so what I mean about sourcing vineyards, I go around and I talk to different vineyard owners, and I sample their grapes and I learn about their so viticulture, how you grow the grapes. I ask questions about viticulture and how they take care of the grapes and the soil and the temperature and
Yeah.
all those things that go into what the grape is going to be at the end.
Right.
So
What your
it's an interview process.
So you talked about your certifications that you did specifically during the pandemic. What type of certifications did you achieve?
So I took advantage of Cornell has had e classes, e certifications they offered during the pandemic. So I enrolled at Cornell and I got my certifications in wines of California, the Pacific Northwest. That includes Oregon and Washington,
Okay,
wines of New York, and wines of France. So
perfect. And those
yeah,
areas that you mentioned, especially those areas in the United States, are some of the highest producing or highest yielding wine
yes,
regions in this country. So
exactly.
most of the stuff we drink is coming from California, Washington, Oregon, and New York. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm a
Yes.
Virginia girl. I think we're like number 5 or 6. So
Yeah.
we doing our thing out here too. So where are you? Where are you
I
from?
am located in Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
in
how's the
Huntsville,
wine
Alabama.
growing down there? It's kind of warm.
Um, it depends on what type of wines you want to produce.
Yeah.
So in Alabama, the popular varietal is muscadine,
Yep.
which is a sweet grape. So lots of wine producers and growers here grow sweet varietals,
Hmm.
and make sweeter wines, fruit wines.
Hmm.
I am not a fruit wine maker, which is why I ventured out to California. I like more of the French and Italian varietals, so your Chardonnay, your Viognier, your Bordeaux, your Burgundies, those type of wines. So it was important for me to make my wines in an area that I have access to those type of varietals that are growing. So
Yep, I get it.
yeah,
And one thing, I have some friends who are starting vineyards in the south, the southern part of the country. And so one thing I suggest is that they kind of look at some things that you can do in like the ones that they do in Spain, because some
yeah.
of those grapes do pretty well in the southern region, specifically Texas. So you may be able to do them in Alabama. So, what
Um,
other varietals or what other wines do you have other than you talked about today? You're doing a white blend. What else do you have?
so coming out in March will be Cuvée number 2. So Cuvée means to blend, and because these are blends, that was just a play on, the French term for blending. And cuvee number 2 will also be another white blend. I'm not going to say too much about the taste because that's going to be a surprise. But I also have
You got to give us a little bit because we
I
want people to go
can't.
to your website
I
and order these.
can't.
Girl, look, you know
Only
how we do.
because, listen,
We
only
ain't ordering it.
because
You know how we are. You got to tell us if it's sweet, if it's dry, if it's somewhere in between. You got to give us something.
okay. I will tell you this. It's a demi-sec. So for those that know the term, I'm going to leave that right there. And only because I'll be starting my tasting tour in April. So I don't want to give too much about what the taste. I don't want people to already kind of have a preconceived notion of what it should taste like. I want them to taste it and then, be surprised. So
all right, I need you to add Richmond, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. to your tasting tour.
Yes.
I already got the folks there, so we'll talk offline. So in the meantime, how can folks order your wines?
So right now, because I'm still waiting on my license in Alabama, it's not on my website yet. But in the near future, it will be available in a few months. But going back to the other varietal before I finish this thought, I also have a sparkling rosé that's coming out in March of this year as well. So that'll be the first time I've dabbled in bubbles. And so this will be interesting to see the feedback and what people think. So that's going to be exciting. But yeah, I have more information during the tasting tour as far as being able to purchase the wines once that starts in April.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so I look forward to. We're going to stay in touch because I want you to be a part of this. I want to be a part of your tasting tour. I have folks in Virginia, especially, which is my home, and my second home is Washington, D.C. So hook me up. Hit me up.
DC is on the list for the cities. So yeah.
All right, Richmond is.
What about Detroit?
Detroit. I haven't thought about Detroit. Chicago's definitely on the list, but we can add Detroit. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I'll fly out to Detroit. So again, thanks for being on this show. So Nicole, how do we find your book?
So you can find the book Finding Nicole on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, Target, Thrifty Books, Books A Million, or bookbabyshop.com.
Yes,
that's who I published the book through, was actually through BookBaby. I am an indie author, so anyone who reads the book, if you would please give me a rating, a review, because that helps me then with getting the book more exposure and getting it into the hands of more people who really need to read it.
Thank you so much. I am definitely gonna donate to your charity. We're in the Lenten season, and so everybody's like, what are you giving up? And so everything, giving up stuff it's not that hard for me, but I decided I don't want to really give up necessarily anything. I'm giving up my money. So for 40 days I'm donating to a charity, and so this is my season of giving. So I will be making a donation this evening once we're off this recording. So I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate what you're doing. So many folks are benefiting, and please reach back out to me if there's anything I can do for either of you to support you and help you. I am here. So thank you again for being the best part of Books and Bottles.
Thank you.
Yes. And please stick around after the show. If there are other authors who are watching the show tonight and you'd like to be a part of the Books and Bottles experience, please email us at info@groseprod.com. We appreciate you for being here. We ask you to share. And thank you again for tuning in. Until next week, cheers.
Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first.